All right, what we're looking at today about modeling my golf game should be pretty short. We're going to get into the strategy layer, and I'm going to steal a big chunk of my strategy from um, videos that I've watched on YouTube, and I'll link the stuff in the description. All right, so a quick recap of what we covered in the first two videos, and if you don't want to watch them, it's probably fine. What we did was we used the application layer to model out the clubs that I have and my accessories, and we used application components to do that. And then up here in the business layer, we use business services to map out different distances of shots. Again, if you want to go watch the videos where we talk about how we made the decisions of what elements to use, you can watch those, but you probably don't need that. Today, we're just going to be talking about strategy. So, as a bogey golfer, what I got out of those videos I watched is my strategy should probably be to try to make one over par on every single hole, and that's how I should be thinking about that. So, forget about like a par three being a par three. My par for a par three is a par four. And if you think about that as a bogey golfer, that means if I go out and shoot 90 on a par 72 course, that's basically me shooting par or average for me. Some days I'm going to do a little worse, some days I might do a little better. What I need to do is consistently track what I do or how I perform. And as I start shooting in the higher 80s, maybe I'll rethink my model. But my model has to be where I am, not where I wish I was. So what we have here are value stream elements that I'm going to use to lay out that strategy. All right, so same question as always. Why did we choose this element? Why are we using value stream elements to represent this? So the reason is a value stream is a sequence of activities that are going to deliver a result to a stakeholder. So the result we're looking for is to be one over par on every hole, and the stakeholder you might think is going to be me, but the stakeholder is going to be a bogey golfer, and we'll go over that in a second. So that's the stakeholder we're delivering the value to. So this is not a process. This is not a step by step, do this, then this, then this to get the result. This is, again, we're in the strategy layer, right? This is a little more general. This is how I'm thinking about a hole as I step up to it. I'm thinking about how I'm going to get my score, and I'm laying out a kind of a general case here. As all of us know, there's a ton of chaos involved. So in general, right, in general, what I'm trying to do is use two shots once I'm within 25 yards of the hole. And kind of go in reverse here, but that's going to be the same for every type of hole. What's going to change is how do I get within 25 yards? So here's what that looks like in a view. Again, my plan is to make a six on the par five by getting to within 25 yards and then using two shots. So how do I get within 25 yards? Well, on a par five, I'm giving myself four shots to get there, and that's, if I think about it, that's pretty realistic. It could be any combination of four shots, right? It could be a good tee shot with a driver, which isn't likely, but then an errant shot into the rough behind a tree, and then I punch it out in the fairway, and then I use a wedge to get on the green. Or I could tee off with a 5 iron and hit it in the fairway, but not very far, then hit another good 5 iron. Now I'm within maybe 120 yards. And then the next shot, I top the ball, right? And I get within 50 yards, but it's way off to the right. So then I've got to chip it to within 25 yards. Or this, I'm going to end up within 25 yards with four shots in both of those scenarios. It's just how I'm going to get there, and I can make that decision as I step up to each hole, uh, to each tee box, or what's usually going to happen is nothing goes according to plan exactly, and I've got to improvise once I'm going. But I want to keep it in my head that whole time that, hey, I've got four shots to get this close. I'm not even saying four shots onto the green, right? I'm saying four shots to get within 25 yards. Okay, and we said earlier that a value stream is going to serve a stakeholder. So who's the stakeholder here? I've only got one, but I'm going to drag it on. I've already made this element and set all this up, but the stakeholder here is the bogey golfer. And like I said before, I could say I'm the stakeholder, but if I'm using a model, this is probably everything I've done so far in all these videos is a pretty good model for somebody who's a bogey golfer. Individuals might change things a little bit, but I'm trying to lay out a general case. So we'll get into actors and roles later, but for now, the stakeholder is going to be a bogey golfer. All right, and the last thing we're going to talk about today, I told you it was going to be short, is relationships. So in an earlier video, I misspoke. I said that the relationship between kind of close shots and the distances was aggregate. I actually misspoke. I put a little note in there, but that's a composite relationship. Kind of close shots are composed of shots of these differences and distances. And the difference between composite and aggregation is slight, but it can be important. So composition basically means if I take away the big thing, the little thing goes away with it, right? So if you think about a house has a room in it. If I take away the house, the room goes with it. I don't have a room anymore. And similarly here, if I take away kind of close shots, all these distances go away with that. So I can't have a 100 to 120 yard shot and not have kind of close shots. They're tightly coupled. Aggregate, on the other hand, means that the smaller piece can exist without the bigger piece. So what we're showing here is a really good example. If par five holes didn't exist, right, this part may go away and this part would still stay. Using two shots on the last 25 yards exists for all of these, right? I'm using the same thing on par fours and on par threes. I'm always using that, use the last two shots. And we can imagine that being a real situation. If I'm playing a course that's a par three course, it doesn't have any par fives. Um, Using two shots in the last 25 yards is still a thing that exists. Or, if I go back to my par five example, as I get better, I may take this off the table, right? I may say, uh, as I become, let's say I go from an 18 handicap down to a 15 handicap. My strategy then might be still treat par threes like par fours, still treat par fours like par fives. Now I want to treat par fives as par fives, right? Because I've got a little bit more play. I've got room for mistakes on par fives. Now I'm going to try to par those. That might be my strategy later, and this would go away, except maybe on some par fives I would keep it, right? So um, I hope that makes sense about the difference between aggregate and composition. And again, the difference is slight. It can be really important. Um, I've worked on projects where we just make a decision at the beginning that we're only going to use composition relationships because we've thought it out. We can't really think of a reason why anything would make a difference to call it aggregate instead of composition. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But we've done this a lot where we'll just say everything's composition, keeps things simple. We don't spend time getting bogged down in the details of how we're going to model something. All right, so that's it for today. I'm actually going to go out and practice if the rain holds off. We'll probably be talking about capabilities next. And when we talk about capabilities, we are going to be talking about the strategy layer. We'll get into exactly what capabilities are and why they're strategic then. But that's it for today.